Hi everyone, it's Pamela Ann Noxon, your holistic grief educator and grief coaching mentor. And I welcome you today into this masterclass in the part of my Heart of Grieving series that is for healers and helpers to give you tips and techniques and tools to help you help others. And in that line of thought, let me find a pen. I want to take a break from the different series that I do in this Facebook group to talk about this work and not only why it matters so much, but kind of the big three questions that that people come to me with and that I ask of others when they approach me about taking my courses or learning from me or having a mentorship. And that is why you, and why this work, and why now. So I'm going to mainly focus today on why you, and I'm going to do a little look at the gifts that you may have that make you a natural for this work that you may not even realize apply to grief coaching. Because I find that, I mean, maybe there's a stigma about it, like that people, they don't know what to do with it. You know, people, ask the same couple questions like, oh my gosh, isn't that hard? Or, mainly I get a lot of very supportive comments from people about how important it is, because I think most people, especially in our culture, realize how far away we are in our society, our modern day Western society, how far away we are from managing and navigating and honoring grief in a healthy, balanced way. So I am going to just say a couple things about why this and why now. The why now has a lot to do with sort of the demographics of modern day Western civilization. We have the baby boomers generation that is, I think that's over 70 million people are considered boomers. And they are not only, passing themselves, but they're losing partners, they're losing friends, they're certainly losing parents and or are still dealing with grief from loss of their parents. So, a couple of little statistics here are that, the more than 57% of Americans who were polled reported experiencing a major loss within the last 3 years. And sometimes when I say this to people, they think, oh yeah, COVID. I'm like, no, this isn't about COVID. This is like these different generations sort of aging out to this point where loss and grief and death and dying and all these decisions and all this coping is more a part of daily life. And those people, they need support and they need help and they need a lot of validation, especially, baby boomers born, in the 50s, early 60s, even late 40s. This is the post-World War II generation that was a boom of people having children after World War II. It's a different world now than what they were raised with. And, the sense of community and the sense of support and the sense of like a tribal aspect of having a group that would be there to support you. Like the digital era in particular is very detached. I mean, I know we can connect like this and we have social media and, we can talk to people, but these are people that, talking on the phone was a big deal because being in person and being supported in a particular way was what they were raised with. It was a very up close and personal support network. And that's, not only is that not happening so much culturally, but when you become a senior citizen, this is a whole separate topic, but there is a real loss of not only the people themselves are passing. Sorry, I had to switch to my phone because Facebook was being weird. And it wouldn't let me feed into the group, so I'm doing a live feed, that, the loss of a lot of their support network is there. People have passed, or they've moved on, or maybe they're in assisted living, or, there's a lot of losses as we age. And the loss of the support network and the society and the group and the network of people that would have supported a senior citizen, it really dissipates. And then there's also the loss of loved ones that's happening. So it's a lot. I think personally geriatric grief work is a whole field in itself, a whole specialty, if you will. So 57% of Americans reported experiencing a major loss over just the last 3 years. That's a recent statistic. And so here are people that have experienced a major loss, okay? A spouse, a parent, a child, friends, and I'm talking about death here. A pet, I consider pet loss to be major loss. But that 57% of Americans is 6 times the amount of Americans who go for counseling or therapy. So maybe 1 out of 6 of those people might have this roadmap of, well, I'm going to go to a counselor or a therapist, or, that maybe they would go to a licensed mental health professional. That leaves the other 5 out of 6, if I'm doing my math right, who are these aren't people that are sort of primed and ready to go get mental wellness care. So someone like a grief coach, especially a holistic grief coach, this work can really fill in a lot of the gap between, maybe that person doesn't go to a spiritual center, a church, a temple, a mosque, or whatever they might have been raised with any longer, so they don't have a pastor, rabbi, imam type, or priest person to help them navigate this profoundly life-altering scenario of the loss of a loved one. So because we're not a religious counselor, and if you are not a licensed mental wellness professional like a therapist or a counselor or an MFCC or a social worker or anything like that, this work fills in the gap between kind of the spiritual and the scientific, medical profession answer to emotional crises, because grief isn't a pathology. It's not a mental illness. It is something that every one of us will experience. It is a natural part of life, is death and loss and grief. So this work really can cover a lot of area, not just this niche filling in between the two, the scientific and the spiritual, but it really does get into wellness care. And that's why I like to work with mental health professionals and spiritual professionals, because I want to help bridge any of these gaps that are happening in any of the professions. So 57% of Americans, that's 6 times the amount of Americans that go for counseling or therapy. So you have this huge demographic that it's not on their radar to go see a therapist, even if they need to. And that's 3 times the amount of people who seek any form of mental health treatment, and that includes pharmaceuticals. So this is a huge amount of people experiencing loss and needing guidance, validation, support, and help navigating this experience, possibly from this space of, I feel like we're just in the very human space that we aren't necessarily, as a grief coach, I'm saying, I know I have mental wellness practitioners in the group. So adding this work to traditional psychotherapy or psychiatry or, mental wellness work just expands that work into it just reaches so many more people. It reaches so many more people. And it really can also be the starting point for someone to find much needed deeper work. That's why when I train people in my courses, I train an important part of the ethics and the boundaries I teach is knowing when to refer to a therapist or to a medical professional, depending on what the experience is. So to me, this work really helps people change lives, and it's desperately needed in our culture. So that's sort of the why this and why now. But the why you is what I wanted to focus on today. And I wanted to focus on some of your gifts that you may not realize really play a part in this work. So obviously, I think most people understand that the gift of being a compassionate person is an important aspect of grief work. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean having to be, an empath and feel people's feelings. In fact, in my courses, I teach a lot of sort of empathic and compassionate boundaries, because it's important that you keep your experience and their experience separate so that you're not, seeing everything through your filters. You're not projecting your experience onto them. I feel like it's important that you're aware of the energy of their experience, that you may feel emotions when you're hearing the story, but you don't take them on. That's the difference. So feeling this warmth and this love, compassion is love in action. So compassion's a verb. It's an action word. You may be feeling, these feelings for someone, but sharing your compassion with them is an important tool in grief work. So you may be someone that feels quite moved to tears from sad stories, whether they're from another person or they're on TV, their movies, their books. I think that's a superpower, personally. That's feeling all of your feelings. It's just important that you're not feeling their feelings and that you're not putting your feelings on them. That's the important boundary. I think the gift of compassion with this work is essential, because it's also coming from a place of that person, and you know who you are, that is aware of the amount of suffering in the world. You may have grown up as someone that I always said, when I was a little kid, I remember saying, "Don't you hear the world crying? Don't you feel that? Don't you hear that?" Like, I could really, it's taken a lifetime of work and therapy to get to a point where I have healthy boundaries and can do this work. 30 years ago, when I had my practice and I was doing the very deep dive work, a lot of emotional release work, I held the boundary for the work, but I was left with a lot of residual gunk that I didn't want. The pains, nightmares, a lot of that kind of stuff. Excuse me. So I think someone who has a deep need or desire to help alleviate the suffering in the world, that's my kind of person. Like, that's who needs to be doing this work, because there is a lot of suffering that presents to you with this work. And, as a trauma-informed holistic grief educator and coach, I'm always looking also for teasing out what is trauma and what is grief, because they're not the same thing. And that's a lot of the work that I teach. And I talk about that a lot in the group here is, because sometimes trauma requires, bringing in the big guns, like a therapist or other helpers. It may take a village to help someone, but you have your space as a holistic grief coach, because you also may be this first line of defense for this person, because their loss and their grief can bring a lot of these people that aren't in therapy. Of the 5 out of the 6 of those people, the ones that won't seek out therapy, grief leaves them no choice. that they realize that this is so much that they need help. They need help, they need support. And, you know, especially sometimes older generations, different demographics, they may not be comfortable seeing a therapist. So they may have, you know, this is, it's only 100-year-old, a 100-year-old profession, really, from Freud and Jung, and really coming into the mainstream from the 70s, the 1970s. So you may have like older people, they're just not ready to plug into that. They didn't really get that. They didn't understand the power of it. I mean, I'm who I am because of therapy. So I personally think everybody should have therapy, because I don't think we're born as these amazing beings full of love and compassion and intuitiveness and all these beautiful superpowers. But, you know, our families aren't always conscious, or our ancestors maybe had a lot of trauma, or, you know, the school playground is, you know, hell on wheels. There's just life. Life has a lot that it throws at us, and it can be traumatizing. And I don't know a human being that wouldn't benefit from relearning the tools of accessing the higher self, the inner self, the parts that get compartmentalized and put off to the side for protection from early era. And that may be pre-verbal, that may be in utero. You know, we are protecting ourselves from, you know, day one, day zero. So I just think there isn't somebody that everyone can benefit from wellness work and mental wellness work, whether it's coaching or therapy or personal development, whatever it is. So the gift of intuition. I think that most healers are very intuitive, sometimes whether they realize it or not. We're all born very intuitive. I think it's a survival skill. Babies are very intuitive, and sometimes they're, you know, I think they respond to people that are more aligned and well differently than they respond to maybe people that aren't present or dissociated or having some issues, or that just have different things going on. I'm not saying good and bad, but there's an intuitiveness there that I believe is natural. And again, it's just like a lot of our other natural gifts. These things you might have been taught at an early age that it wasn't safe to be intuitive. You know, I've always said that a very spiritually shut down person, maybe a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or a parent or an older sibling, if for whatever reason they're very shut down, the most painful thing for them to be around is a fully blossoming, alive, loving, compassionate, intuitive, spiritually connected being like a child, because it only highlights what they're not connected to. Do they need work on that? Absolutely. But so a child may then shut down their natural intuitive or spiritual or compassionate gifts to not cause harm out of love to someone that they are connected with, who is uncomfortable with that. Or you may have religious teachings that teach that you're not allowed to have a direct spiritual connection, or you're not allowed to be intuitive and understand that, you know, grandma's there with you all the time, loving you, connecting you. You know, kids get shut down a lot from their intuition. So if you have insights and ideas and things that come to you when you're talking to people, or sometimes it might be, you might smell something. I know in a lot of work, I have smelled cigarette smoke when I know there's none there, or a particular cologne or a flower, or, you know, just something, or mustiness or something. And that's something that's giving me information on an intuitive level to help the person that I'm working with. You may hear things, you may see things, you may feel things, you know, sort of that clairsentience is just, is sort of that knowing without seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, you know, or any of that. Most of my first experiences were just knowing, and frankly, it made it very hard for me to validate them, because I just kept saying, oh my God, you're crazy, you're making this up, because I didn't have anything more concrete like seeing, hearing. I do a lot of dream work. And over time, and I teach this in my courses, it's very important to honor your own intuitiveness and to build it up. It's a superpower, it's a muscle, it's there, it's your birthright. It's always there waiting for you. And, there are tools and ways to get that puppy turned back on and be using it to help other people. So it may be something, I'll tell you right now, there's a gentleness to that. One of the things that's really a powerful piece of information about intuition is that it tends to come on quietly. It's a gentle voice, and it may not be a voice. It's a gentle knowing. So this quietness of it involves having to sort of still the mind more and open the heart, because it comes more from the heart. It's not coming from the head, because the head is all that, right, wrong, that's impossible, you're crazy, who do you think you are, all of that. So stilling that's important. You may have flashes of insight about a client's about what a client is presenting to you that just sort of show up. I'm just touching on these things. I'm not saying go out there and let everything that comes to you fly out of your mouth with a client. It's a skill, just like therapeutic communication is a skill, just like holding boundaries is a skill. It's a whole package, but you can start honoring this with yourself. Obviously, when you're in session or you're working with people, it's important that you've developed these skills to be doing grief coaching, so that you're coming at this from the healthiest, most ethical way. So sometimes when you sort of ask an intuitive question, curiosity is a great way to start working with your intuition with other people. So it's not like I'm the great and powerful Oz is getting a message. It's so funny because it's not really an overblown skill. It's a delicate, beautiful little voice that is a part of your heart and a part of your alignment with yourself and with things greater than you. And so I always say, when somebody's really overdoing it, it's like, wow, okay, what's going on there? That you might introduce working with this with just sort of a gentle curiosity. I was just wondering, do you ever have a dream about this kind of thing? And what's that like? So you're really asking gentle questions instead of, I'm getting a vision that you're dreaming of a red wagon, or, there's a red wagon involved. It's like, or the sled, Rosebud, for you film buffs, that it may be something like, do you ever have dreams? Or, what would it be like if you, dreamt about a red wagon? Would that mean something to you? So you're allowing it to be in their space, not taking it over as the great and powerful Oz kind of a thing. So, but I have whole, modules about developing your intuition in my Holistic Grief course work. And I have a module coming up of the fundamentals, which is the basic certification course. So I'll get you more information about that and dates and everything. I know so many of you have been asking. I've had so much going on with other projects, so I will get that delivered, I promise. So another gift that you have is, of course, the gift of love, of a loving heart. It requires a loving heart to do this work. And that involves loving yourself. So being open-hearted, I think that's part of feeling your feelings and being compassionate and allowing yourself emotions. I think that just shows a great big heart, that you care about their experience, that you're a human being. I think being a human being, being a good human, is an important part of this work. And so having a loving heart, because you want people to feel your compassion. Just having it isn't enough. You want people to feel that compassionate support and that compassionate guidance, because it's not just didactic information. Do this, try this. It's this humanity. When I talk about that model of compassion, that there is mindfulness. Oh gosh, what's the third one? Mindfulness, humanity. I forgot what the third one is. I'll have to look it up. But humanity is one of them. So you want people to be able to feel the warmth of your love for yourself, for life, for what you do, for them, for anything. Having a loving heart and having it, open and working, you want your heart working, is very magnetic as well. Like, loving what you do is an important aspect of this work. Not only is it essential for keeping you from burning out, but it's also extremely magnetic. You will draw in people that want to work with you because they can feel that you love what you're doing, you love yourself by holding boundaries, and you have love for them, again with boundaries. But I get that all the time. In a past incarnation in this life, when I was doing a lot of ceremonies, doing weddings and funerals and all kinds of ceremonies. I worked with teen groups and like where I would almost do like ceremonies that were honoring initiation or growing into adulthood. I've done baby blessing ceremonies. These rituals, they have so much power, and I loved what I did. And I mean, I even would, that was back in the day, so I had a magazine ad, and it was just me and smiling at the camera, thinking of how much I loved what I did. A photographer that took my photo said, think about why you love what you do and how much you love it, and, working with all the people and helping them with transformation and helping them with this sort of evolution that they experience from ritual and honor and ceremony. And I just was really holding that space. And I think it really must have come through into the photo, because almost every person almost every person that called me from that advertisement that I had in a magazine said the same thing. They said, I saw your face and I knew you were the person that I wanted to work with. I couldn't even have to say anything. It was my love for the work transmitted more than what words could transmit. And that's why love is so important for this work. Because I say often, even though I use a lot of them, and I'll teach you therapeutic dialogue, I'll teach you some neuro-linguistic programming, I'll teach you guided imagery. Words are beautiful tools. They really are. But they pale in comparison to love. You can hold a loving space that is more powerful in silence than a less loving space with a bunch of words thrown in. It's about the heart. That's why I call my work the heart of grieving. Well, I call it that for a number of reasons, but it really is love. It's the heart of it is love and compassion, and that includes the connection that we want our people to keep with their loved ones. It's the love. The love never dies. It doesn't go away. The connection doesn't die, the love doesn't die, the relationship doesn't die. Even if you're working with someone who truly believes that there's nothing in the afterlife, they can still have the love and the relationship that they can feed and honor and hold space with. So I don't work with a lot of people that don't have any belief system of something beyond the physical, but it happens. I would always hold space for that person. As well, I would honor whatever they needed. So if you're coming from your heart in whatever you do, you're putting love into everything. It's like cooking, like I say, cooking is my love language. So, a meal tastes different when it's made with all that love, just like anything you do. Like it really becomes so much more powerful. So the gift of listening and of holding space is so powerful. If that's something that you have as a skill naturally, that's incredible. If you have people say to you, gosh, you're such a good listener, I really feel like I can trust you, that's amazing. Trust is ginormous. If you really like deep conversations and you really like deeply connecting when you talk to people, that's an important skill. If you don't have that skill, it's very learnable. It's learnable. I teach that in my therapeutic dialogue. Active listening, loving listening. I have a lot of different tools I teach. The gift of vision. That's very exciting. Now, I know that's something that I work with a lot. Like not so much in acute grief and early grief when people are in so much raw grief and suffering and all of that, but when you're working with people that are more in ongoing or mature and lifelong grief, when they're, again, not linear time, but that's the era that they're in, we can start working with people to help them kind of put a new life back together. I know that doesn't make sense, but they're taking this life that they had pre-loss that's been blown into a million pieces, the kaleidoscope, as I like to say, and we're helping them create the vision of what they want to have as their new life that they're putting back together with all the, the life pre-loss. But now we're including the loss. We're including the grief. We're including the loved one. We're including the connection to the loved one. How are you going to live your life? Who are you going to be post-loss? What are you going to do with your life? There's more life to live and there's more love to give. What's that going to look like? So we kind of help them almost vision board it, but that has to happen at the right time. You don't want to push that too early. So also if you, that's how we help other people envision and use our visionary skills. But if you have sort of, you're really good at making plans, you're really good at envisioning things, you're really good at seeing where you want to be. Are you seeing this as the work that you want to do? Can you see yourself doing this? Does it feel right? Can you vision board this for yourself? Like, wow, I want to do this work. I want to help make the world a better place. I want to help people with suffering. I want to do something that I feel really, really matters in the world. I want to do something that's needed. Okay, we're really, really veering off into my vision board, so bear with me. I want to do something where I'm respected. That matters to me. I want to do something where I have my own schedule. That is huge to me. I don't know that I could ever walk into a 9-to-5 job, work, career ever again. I don't think I'm physically capable of it anymore. I work very creatively and I need a lot of downtime. That's an important part of creativity, is rest and downtime and stepping away. So I love this work because it allows me all of this freedom and all of this space in between working with people and teaching and writing and filming to live my best life, to do the things that replenish me, just for me, not just for the work, but for me. You have to have a schedule in this work that keeps you from burnout. So you need empty space. You need empty space. You need creativity. You need family and friends and love and, vacations and just a whole bunch of nothing, a whole bunch of free time. And this work creates a template for working in that way. And that is not a small thing. That's the life I envisioned for myself years ago. I knew that, and I created it. So, visionaries like to talk about, how are we going to make the world a better place? What can I do? What does the world need? Now, what can I, and you start making a plan, and you just start doing it. Now, there are visionaries that only really, work on mapping it out, but, I want to help you connect the dots so that you're, okay, what's my first step? What's my first step to doing this work? Being in this group is your first step. You're learning from me. I'm sharing a lot of tools and techniques. You might join me in a workshop. You might do maybe, obviously you can, take the courses for certification, but I offer a lot of ways to sort of, to get you there in whatever your trajectory is. That's really important. There is obviously my way of working with clients, but how you want to work, that's got to be your, I want you to start envisioning that, start writing that out, start vision boarding that, journaling it, drawing it out, dancing it out, singing it out, something where you're saying, you know what? I feel that I'm in the process of creating a new way of working, living, bringing something that matters to the world. And if it is grief coaching work, map that out right from the start. I'd like to work this many hours because I'd also like to be doing this, and I'd like this, and I want this much time with my family, and I want to make this much money. Like, these things matter. Like, I never vilify money. You know, that's money matters. Money matters. So you deserve compensation. You know, we go through all of that as well in some of my different courses. So it's important, like visionaries work a lot with dreams, a lot of dream work, a lot of guided imagery. That's an important aspect of this work. I want you to follow your dreams, but you need to have them to follow them. So getting clear on your vision is very, very important. So even just start doodling out ideas, no limitations, no judgment. Just every time I've ever done that, it came to life. It's amazing how much power we have to create whatever we do want in life. My my master class to my grievers after this class, and you have to watch the time here because it's on the hour after you guys. I'll be talking about neuropathways and how important it is to bring the love and the connection and the positive stories about your loved one to your grief experience, because the sad stories or the trauma stories or the negative stuff or the fear and the sadness just begin to create more and more neuropathways of that reality. Like, that's not a new age thing that your thoughts create your reality. That's neuroscience. What we think becomes chemicals that create neuropathways and are then what our brain goes to. Because the more you think something, the more the neuropathways get developed and built and, supported, and there's a deeper foundation, and they get stronger and stronger and bigger. Whereas the other thoughts, you're not thinking as much, they start to grow over, like the jungle over a pathway that isn't used often. So I'm not telling them to think positive or be grateful, because I think that's a rather heinous thing to say to a griever. But I want them to focus on just one little happy memory, one little story about the loved one, not about the death, about the life, something in the life, and just keep adding to that side of the scale every day. And that's my sneaky way of helping them create a new vision and a new, to help override the thoughts that can really take over. The negative thoughts, the fear thoughts, the pain thoughts, the trauma thoughts, they take over and they become the reality in the brain, because that's the way the brain works. So visioning is a very important skill for you and to help grievers with. But it has to be done in a way that that isn't a toxic positivity way. We can't just say, oh, don't think that, think this. It's not possible for them, especially with traumatic loss. So instead of trying to, as I say, beat down the dark, we light a candle, we add to the light a little bit, just a little bit, and we help them make it a habit. So I'm getting into another topic. The gift of wisdom is very important. I love to study all ancient wisdom, indigenous wisdom. I will read anything, anywhere about grief work and about holistic wellness and about spiritual wellness. I was reading an article this morning about neuropathways and how they get developed. So, and that was I think that was from a science journal. Knowledge and information, bring it on. I want everything. And then I have a very syncretic way of working that I'll then say, my gosh, that's so powerful. How can I use that to help my grievers? So a Science Journal article that was about, positive thinking and neurosynapses and neuropathways and how the brain works became the fodder for how I will help my grievers today. I won't give them too much information about that, although of course I think it's fascinating. So the gift of wisdom is something that when you have knowledge, which is learnable, and you have insight, and you have the ability to give good advice, because that's what coaching is. Coaching is advising. Now, therapy is not advising. It's a very different skill set. It's different tools, it's different teachings. Therapy is very powerful because it has a particular mechanism of the dynamic between the therapist and the client or the patient. It really is quite different than coaching. So with coaching, we have a little more of a level playing field where we can say and suggest things that a therapist isn't, usually trained or allowed to do in their protocol. So, giving advice, I think it depends on the way the therapist works and the way they were trained, but they do have a very different protocol than coaches. So, I think you just can never stop studying. That's why I have so many modules of courses. I have my main foundational course that's the core fundamentals of holistic grief coaching. That's a 4-month course, and then you're certified, and then you can come back and take all these other different short modules. Some may be 8 weeks, some may be longer, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, some may be a month, and it might just be, gosh, I'm really interested in, her add-on module of how indigenous cultures view death, dying, and the afterlife. That's so exciting. Like, I just love learning. I love learning. I love knowledge. I love learning from all different sources, and I like being able to then share it with people. I'm just very excited about it. I may have an extra add-on module that is just art therapy for grief, or nature and animal therapy, Gaia therapy for grief. I have all these different modules that then once you're certified with the basics, because then we're speaking the same language, then I can add in, you can add in, and we can add in all these different exciting ways to work with this basic knowledge, and give it whatever unique flavor and skills that appeal to you. You may think, like, I don't care about art therapy. I really want to do soul retrieval work. I want that archetypal soul's journey through grief course that is Pamela's protocol. I want that one, and do them all. I'm always happy to see people back. So the gift of wisdom is important. The gift of being creative is very important, because being creative with your work is almost essential, because each person that comes to you is going to be a different person. You want to make sure, and that's kind of the beauty of taking a lot of different courses, whether with me or elsewhere, of always learning, is that you're always adding to your toolkit. That someone comes in and, you don't want to be didactic with this and be saying, well, this is the protocol I learned and this is what I'm going to do. Every human being that comes in and needs help with you is a unique universe of a human being. So you kind of want to be able to, you want to be able to, I don't know if you ever stood on a surfboard before, but, or maybe one of those Pilates balls with the board. You want to be able to be flexible. So flexibility and creativity are very important for working with people. So if, you ever like to create stories, create artwork, create cooking, crafts, any of those things, being a creative person is a huge asset to doing grief work. It translates beautifully. So being creative really matters, because let's face it, the creative force is one of the things we're helping them connect back into. The creative force is the life force, and helping grievers plug back into life at some point and integrate grief and life together in the same heart that's been broken. That requires creative thought. That requires creativity. That is creating, and we're helping them create a new life. And of course, art therapy, which I adore. I became an art therapy practitioner because I just wanted a playfulness in my work as well, and a grief movement guide, certified grief movement guide. But I had already been a yoga instructor, and who doesn't like to dance and move, and it's so natural. So what we're helping people do is sort of give birth. They're reincarnating and creating, sort of birthing into a new version of their life post loss. That's creative. So the gift of humor, sorry. Now, you're probably not going to be yucking it up with too many of your acute and early grief clients. But eventually, if it really comes in handy. It really comes in handy. And you really have to have, I want your intuitive skills to be developed as well to really know when to say something. And you may have clients using dark humor, black humor, cracking jokes about, that's called whistling in the dark. That's a very powerful tool for getting through the worst of traumas, is humor. Even if it makes the person feel, crazy, it's actually, it's them coming from the deepest depths. If you know anything about sort of law of attraction scale, the emotional scale, the deepest depths, even laughing about it sarcastically can really raise their energy level and their functioning level dramatically. You just want to make sure that they're not using it to completely cover up dealing with their real feelings. So more about that another time. But if you're bringing, it's your job to hold joy, whether or not you're not going to be like, hey, tell me about that traumatic loss. But this space in your heart of joy and laughter and humor, and that's a lot of inner child work as well, very important, because you may find grievers accessing old joy that got put aside from trauma. People don't just repress bad things, they repress good things as well. You don't get to just keep the good emotions and stuff the bad ones. When you shut down over and over and over through life, as I've talked about, from trauma, from loss, life, take one, as I like to say, that, that a lot of times deep joy and playfulness has been repressed. So doing a lot of this work can actually end up with a fountain of joy and laughter and humor that's quite unexpected. So you want to be able to hold a space of a full spectrum of emotions for people, because you don't want someone feeling guilty that they're laughing and having a beautiful, happy memory of their loved one in a session with you. That's fantastic. We want them to have full range of emotion in their grief. It's essential. It's a part of healthy grieving. The gift of positivity is what I just basically explained, but we want to be, that's more holding those North Stars that I talk about, that you may not be pushing them, but you're holding a space of, let me make sure I remember my North Stars, the things you may not say, but you're holding in your heart that you would hope for someone's healing, to include gratitude, forgiveness, joy, hope, love, and perspective and peace. Yeah. Those are my 5 North Stars. Yay, I remembered them. Gratitude, forgiveness, joy, hope, love, and peace. We want that for any human being. That's a healthy human being that's firing on all those babies. So this, humor and positivity are quite nurturing. Because if it's always, always, always this depths of darkness and sadness and loss and grief, we more want to be a magnet for those feelings more than saying, you should really be feeling some gratitude and forgiveness and joy and hope and love and peace. No, that would be so unethical and so spiritually violating to say that to someone. But we can hold those things in our heart. That's another beautiful skill. So the gift of connection is very important, and that involves being connected with all of life. It means being connected with the parts of you. Doing your own work is important. That's why actually a lot of people that take my course, a lot of it is your own work. It's your own grief work. So you're clearing and healing and navigating a lot of your own aspects that maybe got out of alignment or that got put aside for safekeeping, and bringing them back into the fold, your own inner child work, your own connection work, your own balance with mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Like that's an important part of doing this work, is doing your own work. And that makes sure you're not projecting onto the other people. And these gifts of using your voice to bring love to another person, the gifts of joy, and the gifts of transmitting this love and peace and energy and forgiveness. And that means doing your own work on perspective. I call it more perspective work than forgiveness. We'll talk about forgiveness in another masterclass, because it's a big topic. Sometimes it's not right to forgive somebody. It's not up to us. It's up to the person. But allowing that space, holding the joy and the perspective of releasing judgment, or if you want to call it forgiveness, gratitude, hope, love, and peace, holding that in your heart and being able to transmit it to the person. That's a really beautiful skill, another learnable skill, and we are built to do that. We as human beings are built to do that. But those of you who want to help other people and who do help other people, my healers and my helpers, I'm so glad you're here with me on this journey. And I love talking to all of you. Please schedule your free consultation with me so I can get to know you better. It really matters to me, and it helps guide my content here. You know, you may say, God, I've got a really big question here. I don't know what to do. I'll do a topic on it. Yay. So thanks again for joining me today. I know you have a busy life and a busy schedule. From my heart to yours, I thank you for everything that you're doing for the world, and I'll see you next week. Love you.